Did you ever say to yourself, you know, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done things a heck of a lot differently? Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, lead, and inspire. And wouldn't it be great if we could all be Nostradamus, at least as far as our individual selves were concerned, where we could predict what was going to happen? You know, as we go through life, we make changes. I mean, when Eli was a puppy, you know, having a handsome number of lightsabers was of critical importance. And now as he approaches his Sweet 16, basketball and girls are at the top of his totem pole. You know, you move in life from one stage to another, and that even includes the jokes. You know, I mean, when Eli was a little boy, you know, why does a chicken cross the street? You know, and then I remember the one day, I can't forget this day, you know, hey, give me a high five, up high, down low, in the middle, too slow. For 3 hours that went on. Eli was doing up high, down low, in the middle, whoa, too slow. And even the jokes change. And when you get older, they change for you again. Only you may or may not look forward to it. You know, it's you know, about the one I heard recently was, you know, 3 guys are sitting on a park bench. They get together every morning, you know, and one guy's of the 3 is sitting there and he's looking kind of sad, and his buddy says to him, so what's the matter? He says, well, you know, being in my 80s, I get up at 7 o'clock, I go to do number 1, I stand there, and it's so frustrating, it takes so long, and it's so unsatisfying. And the second guy says, yeah, I know what you mean. He says, you know, I get up early just like you. You know, I try and do number 2, and I huff and I puff, and, you know, it's such a struggle, it takes forever. And they look at the third guy and they say, what about you? And he says, well, you know, by 8 o'clock, number 1, like a racehorse, you know, and by 8 o'clock, number 2, like a champ. He said, so what's the problem? He says, I don't get out of bed till 9 o'clock. So as you can tell, the jokes actually are going to change as you get older. But my point here is, if you could go back and redo some of the things that you've done in the past, you know, so what are some of the things that you won't care about that maybe you care about right now when you're on your deathbed? What regrets would you have? All right, well, one of the ones that people have right now is rejection and embarrassment. Because, you know, when you're in your 20s, you care what everybody thinks about you. But when you're 40, you stop caring what everybody thinks. By the time you get to 60, you realize that no one was ever thinking about you in the first place. So stop worrying about what other people think. Don't worry about being rejected. Don't worry about trying something, having it not work, and being embarrassed. It's crazy. Everyone goes through that. And if you want to reach that next level, then rejection and embarrassment are not things that you need to concern yourself with. It's the trying, it's the moving forward, it's getting to the next starting line. Another thing that people on their deathbeds frequently say that, boy, you know, I wish I would have made a different decision back then, is risky situations. And their point is, everything is a risky situation. From the moment that you get up out of bed in the morning to do anything, anything can happen to you. So there's always going to be the risky situation. You know, as Jim Rohn says, and I quote, I'll tell you what changed my whole life. I finally discovered that it's all risky. The minute you got born, it got risky. If you think trying is risky, wait until they hand you the bill for not trying. How many people go through life wishing, wanting, hoping, praying for the circumstances around them to change, and yet they just stay on that same old treadmill? You've got to realize that, you know, especially now, I mean, if a pandemic doesn't make you realize that, like, that job that you thought was 100% safe, and then you find out that the company is closed down, they're out of business, your income is stopping, those types of things. Everything is a risk. So don't be afraid to put it out there. Don't be afraid to go after your dream, your goal, your ambition. Take a step, make a move, do something that's going to move you forward as far as achieving the things that you really want to achieve. And don't get stuck in that same old treadmill that the majority of people, as evidenced by the fact that 75 to 80% of the people working tell you that they're dissatisfied with their jobs. Does that make sense? Go out and do something that you want to do and put your heart and soul into it. Because that's the difference between living and existing. The third thing that people frequently regret is having petty, spats and disagreements with members of their family. Okay, you know the old saying, you can pick your friends, you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your family. All right? Well, no family is perfect. There's always going to be some disagreements. People argue, they fight, they stop talking to each other, they ignore. You can't do that, because then you have regrets. And one of the things that was of utmost importance to me was, Eli, when your grandfather was older and needed, when you were born, we were thinking of different ways. My wife and I were thinking of different ways. How can we get him to move out to the Midwest from Boston? He's so planted there, and he's lived his whole life there. He's not somebody that likes a lot of changes. So how are you going to get him to move? Well, you got to kind of put yourself in their shoes. And one of the things is, I said to him, Dad, Eli needs a grandfather, and you need a grandson. We've got plenty of room. Why don't you come on out and stay with us so that we can all be together? And he didn't have an answer for that. And we got him to move out here. So, that's one of the things. You've got to put aside, little disagreements. You've got to be persuasive. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. And the other thing is, it's not worth it to, give somebody else the silent treatment that's in your family. Does that make sense? You end up being so sorry for all those wasted years that you didn't come to terms. So swallow your pride, come to terms, and get together as a family, because families are critically important. And blood is thicker than water, as they say, and it's a critically important thing. You have disagreements. I know so many people that have disagreed with their siblings, but in the time of trouble, you've got to be there for each other. You've got to be there for each other. That's what family is all about. And another thing that people regret when, people that were interviewed that were on their deathbeds, all right, we talked about 3 of them already. I'm going to give you a 4th one, and that was trying to keep up with the Joneses, okay? They get a new car, you have to get a new car. They get, this bit of clothing, you have to get that bit of clothing. It's not necessary to live your life that way. What's necessary is that you have your own vision, your own goals, your own objectives. Get rid of the jealousies, get rid of the materialistic things that, the super materialistic things. Just because somebody else did it, you have to do it. It doesn't work that way. And it's one of the biggest regrets that people have is, trying to keep up with the Joneses. A gentleman named Dave Ramsey said it very, very well, and I quote, "We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like." All right? Is that a way to be? It really isn't. It really isn't. So, live your life, do what you want to do, and do it with passion. Don't let other people's materialistic things that You know, they brag about affect you, that you have to have this or you have to have that. Does that make some sense? Right? So those are 4 things that people regret. Let me talk about the one thing that people really want to have more of. I told you what they don't want. Let's tell you what they do want. And that is time. They want to have the time to spend with their family, their loved ones, their friends, their experiences. Think about, you know, I ask people all the time, they coming back from vacation, I say, so what'd you do on your vacation? Oh, nothing, I just relaxed, I just stayed home, all right? Well, you know, in today's times with the pandemic, you know, one of the things I wanted to do this very week was go to Maine, but for obvious reasons, can't go, all right? For one thing, the place that I go isn't having the event this year, and for another thing, the state of Maine won't let you in unless you're quarantined for 14 days or this, that, and the other thing, and I can understand that. And I'm hoping and praying that this is a temporary thing, that a year from now this will all be behind us, but who really knows? My point is, when you have the opportunity to do something, to experience something, try it. Go for it. During your, you know, I'm not saying, you know, not maintain your singleness of purpose in the workspace, but when you have vacation time, when you have some downtime, say to yourself, is what I'm doing right now merely distracting from something important that I could be doing, something that's going to move me up to the next level? Or is what I'm doing just something that is going to kill time? You know, and when you get to the end, the one thing you really want is you want that time. And here's the real downside. When you have all of your strength, all of your abilities, you know, all of your good health, that's when you waste the most time, isn't it? You know, I think, well, I'm indestructible, nothing, you know, nothing can hurt me. But you know what? You've got to take advantage of that. And that's the number one regret that people have on their deathbed, that they didn't make better use of their time. And because we will never end a meeting on a philosophical note, I've had this deathbed conversation with you. Think about these things right now. Get rid of the things that aren't moving you forward, and let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.